Well, good evening, everybody. This is Tex Patriot here, and welcome to Q's News and Counterpoint. We got our group together tonight, and I'm Tex Patriot, and the rest of y'all want to introduce yourselves?
Milkmaid's here.
Hi, Milkmaid.
West is here.
And Mad Hatter.
And Tennessee Home. I'm just saying. And Milkmaid brings her own geese gallery.
I knew that was going to carry through. They were quiet until I said something, and then they've always got to talk over you.
No worries, Milkmaid. Everybody else has a peanut gallery. We got a geese gallery. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
I got a bird gallery, so don't worry about it.
So far ahead of the game, I'll tell you. So anyway, I think Kaz is going to join us later, and is Missy in?
Missy's going to come in just a little while.
Okay, great.
Some briefs.
So lots of news in the last couple of days. So probably we'll start out where we were chatting before we went on live. We were talking about Michael Flynn and the fact that the judge did a extension on his sentence, and he's pushed it back to March for us. And it was interesting because if you look at the documents that were given in Tennessee, you may speak to this better than I did because you actually pulled it down for us. Is that it's just interesting. We had some, it's not quite the documents we expected the judge to receive, is it?
No. They're what I classify them as hearsay. Now, there's discussion about some latent documents that were brought in, the actual 302. I need to close the loop on that, which I have not been able to see if there was any supplemental documents brought in. But the 302s that were brought in are, in essence, hearsay. They're really Peter Stroke's recollection of the interview, not a report immediately after, let alone let's say what Flynn said. It was more or less what Stroke remembers Flynn saying.
Right. It was interesting too that the usual media reports go out about the judge saying that this was he should be guilty of treason and then apologize for it. Well, you don't hear the part about he apologized, for working for a foreign country supposedly. But the media is only reporting that the judge threatened him about treason.
And that, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I'm done.
No, and that one to me was, I didn't see it live, but from the reports thereafter, and the fact that he came back and said, "Oops, my bad," after the recess. What I immediately came to is like, gee, did Sullivan and Meadows compare notes? Because when you look at, I mean, it wasn't a 1-for-1 actuality, equal. But look at what Meadows did in the Clinton oversight in getting the information out by chastising those guys that were the forensic headhunters, if you know, the bounty hunters, and this judge doing it to Flynn, and Flynn not taking basically taking away his guilty assessment, which is boggling everybody, right? It's like, the judge is giving you an option to step out of it and basically say, I withdraw my plea, and you're not doing it.
Right. And obviously there's a game being played here. This is like the major shoe to drop on it. And
what did the judge do? I'm sorry, Tex.
Go ahead. No, please go ahead.
I mean, I'm comparing it again to Meadows and the what did Meadows do? Through those guys, he disclosed what the Clinton Foundation was doing, the Gates Foundation was doing, and the acting as a foreign agent, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what did the judge do with Flynn? He basically chastised him for being a foreign agent when he was a government employee, right? And then he came back and said, oh, never mind. But by that time, the media had already gone out there and says, he's a treason. Well, guess what's going to be used?
Yeah, is that the judge has already put out the crime, and now it's in the public domain. So when treason comes up, no one's going to be shocked to hear the word. They'll be expecting Flynn, but it's actually going to be lots of other people that are going to be accused of that.
And the media won't be able to say poop about it because they've already set the stage for themselves to support the case for treason.
Let me ask you this, or let's ask all of y'all. Do you think this puts the D class out in front and center now coming up, or do you think that's still the ace in the hole that won't be played for a while? Any thoughts?
A portion of it may be an ace in the hole. I think if they put the D class out, I personally don't think they're going to put out the entire thing, but they may put out stuff that's relevant to the situation that's going on now, and then save the ace in his back pocket. If that makes sense. So
bring it out in a series of waves, kind of thing.
Right,
Just release this, release that.
A piece, yeah.
I'll toss it over to Wes and Milkmaid before I make my comment.
No, I was just thinking I would like to see or prefer to see a little bit come out just to take the heat off of Flynn. I'd like to see what was surrounding him at that time to drop. And maybe Papadopoulos. That way the press can go run the other direction.
I think Flynn's part of what their plan is. I think all of this is dragging and drawn out because they have to, and I'm not sure who I was talking to earlier today, but it's kind of like having a chore and saying it's only going to take me 5 minutes and it ends up taking you all weekend. Well, they probably planned for a year or so, but it's taken them a lot longer. They're just finding more that needs to be done.
Good point. It also struck me today that we got news about the Trump Foundation being, in essence, put under kind of like a liquidation watch kind of thing, is that it's being no longer controlled by anybody in the Trump family. Isn't it interesting that it happened to a foundation? Is that it struck me the same way. What about you, Tennessee? Any thoughts?
Well, the aspect going back, not on the foundation per se, but I mean, it could be that it's being used as a model, if you may, right? As a reference precedence, lack of a better word. Going back on the D class side, a couple of things. If starting with Flynn, Mueller comes up and says he's doing his civic duty. I'm putting words in his mouth, obviously, but he's doing his civic duty by helping other investigations, and therefore don't give him any sentence. Flynn says, I'm not withdrawing my plea of guilty. But what I'm saying is that Mueller knows that Flynn is doing other investigation, is contributing to other investigations. I don't know if he knows what he's contributing, but he's got to know to whom he's contributing it.
Yeah.
Right.
So Flynn's taking bullets, is what you're saying.
No, I'm saying Mueller is playing along.
Oh, I got you.
And yeah, I mean, Flynn is taking bullets for sure, but I'm saying Mueller's playing along. I'm thinking, which leads to the credence of leverage, or some aspect of he's going along with a gray hat, white hat. I don't want to go down that path for this discussion. What I'm trying to say is that the D class may not even be necessary. It may just be the stick that's being waved around. I can bring this hammer down, or loosely put the hammer. I can bring this hammer down anytime I want to. And the minute Mueller comes out, if Mueller comes out to be a white hat or a gray hat, no need to declass. It'll all be out through him and through the IG. It'll all die with Mueller, the media in particular, right? And if Mueller is not a white hat, then drop the declass. And that destroys Mueller as well. So I think
I'm hard pressed. Maybe it's just my mood today, but I'm hard pressed to believe that fella is a white hat or even a gray hat, unless they just either laid it out on him before he took the meeting, before he went on, went into the job. Something happened, but boy, I'll tell you, he's under my skin these days.
I mean, he's not exactly, but what Fed is. He was the head of the FBI. And one theory that I heard today that was interesting, that if he's when he was head of the FBI and he had to carry the uranium, the yellow cake sample, that was his job. He had to do it. He declined doing it multiple times before he actually did it. Now, you could say, hey, you should have taken the bullet and never gone, and even if it meant being fired and that kind of stuff. But if we look at it from that perspective, what if he did it reluctantly and it has been a thorn under his nail this entire time, and now is his chance to get even? Because look at the people he did it for, right?
I have to, Tennessee. I have a little problem with that. With Mueller's record, he has been no white hat this whole time. His whole FBI gig. So
Yeah, I'm not saying he's a white hat per se, a good guy all the way. I'm saying that from an aspect of being used because for a particular thing that's stuck in his craw, right? Even bad guys get burned by other bad guys, and they'll turn evidence because it's stuck in their craw, right?
right.
Well, the biggest thing that gets me, biggest sticking point, is why did he have that meeting with Trump the day before the special counsel was convened?
Right.
For the FBI job. Okay, he had already aged out and he had already timed out. He had done his maximum time, and on top of that, they had made him an extension. And so he was not
So he was totally disqualified for the job.
in any way, shape, form, or fashion of taking that job. So what meeting did he have under the guise of being interviewed for that job? Was that Trump telling him, okay, look, this is what's going to happen, or the generals telling him, this is what we have on you, you play ball or not? We don't know, but that's the only thing that sticks with me personally, because that really makes you think. He knew he wasn't qualified. Trump knew he wasn't qualified. So what was the meeting about the day before the special counsel was convened?
Well, let me ask you a question. If are you breaking any laws or at least ethics to do that to someone?
To do what?
Well, to put them in a trick box like that. We already have the data on you, and if you don't play the way we want as our special counsel, we're going to drop the hammer on you. Isn't that kind of like being blackmailed? I mean,
well,
I'm just curious.
I would think that it really would depend on how they approached it. They could say, okay, we have this, and this is your choice. You can go down for all of this, or if you give him a free will choice of doing the right thing or taking the punishment for everything they had on him, I wouldn't think that's blackmail. I wouldn't look at it like that.
Yeah. And I would go with Milkmaid in this one, in the sense of, if that were the case, that it was blackmail or coercion, then every DA in the country would be in jail.
Right. And if you think about how meticulous this plan is, how everything is so scripted that it's unreal. Down to the minute detail. So I really think, in theory, with that, if you're thinking of it in that size, I really don't think that a meeting with Trump would have thrown them off. I'm sure they were loaded for bear. They knew what law supported what. Hell, they may have some 1723 law that was forgotten 200 years ago that they're still using. There's no telling. But whatever box they've got him on, if they got him in a trick box, I'm sure they're doing it the legal way, because that's why it's taking so long, because they've got to make sure that they have all their T's crossed, all their I's dotted, and that these guys do not get off on technicalities.
I think we should.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just ended with this, Wes, that from my point of view, that you guys should look at Stable Genius did a decode on the now I'm going brain dead, stealth bomber. And he actually goes, remember that Q post where it says, how do you take down a blockade? And it was pretty much somewhat Mueller centric, right? And others in the FBI, of course, but in the DOJ. But that was a pretty interesting decode. And it was really more about identifying Whitaker, but it was interesting way of looking at it. It doesn't definitively say one way or the other that Mueller's a good guy or a bad guy, but it just adds more to the, man, when this whole thing reveals itself, it's going to be darn interesting. Go ahead, West. I'm sorry.
We lost Wes for a moment.
She's
Sounds like.
Yeah, I see her in mute.
Can you? You're on mute, Wes.
Yeah, she's muted.
Okay.
She'll be stuck.
She'll be back.
Okay.
Okay, so we kind of covered around Flynn pretty good. We kind of covered around Mueller. So let's talk about my favorite guy, James Comey. We mentioned before about James and how he came out of the meeting pretty upset. And it's interesting. Yeah, I watched an interview with Trey Gowdy, and his I've always liked Trey Gowdy for me personally, as I felt he was a very righteous guy, and I guess that's the best way I can put it. But his indignation towards Comey when he started talking about it was really fascinating. And then to watch Comey come out, if you watch, and I watched, gosh, who was it? Body Language Chat. I don't know if y'all ever seen that, but if you don't go to BitChute, you can only get a few minutes of the thing. But it showed Comey how he was really, I mean, he's a true believer. He's kind of caught up in the religion of the FBI, which you kind of made a joke about a little bit a while ago about who trusts the FBI anyway, but is that they've got their own kind of belief system that their law is the law, whether it is or not. And it was interesting is that Comey could talk about, what doing the things that are right and constitutional as he believes it to be.
Mm-hmm.
But when he talked about Trump picking on the FBI by tweeting, he could look at the camera, but the rest of the time he really couldn't. He was looking away. His head was down. He was looking at his hands. It was like a tell. It was like a poker tell. And it was just interesting. And so I just wonder if there's any kind of thoughts on that. And did we hear anything about Loretta Lynch?
I think she's wasn't on today, I think. Or maybe she was, and it was all hidden by the Flint stuff. I didn't hear anything about her. And as far as Comey's concerned, I mean, to me, he comes off as the epitome of elitism. And maybe FBI centric. I would say big government centric. But he just exudes elitism. Not in the monetary sense, but in the you cannot touch us. Yeah, oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Self-righteous.
All 6-8 of them.
Boy, it didn't take long for us to perk up on giving responses to that, did it?
Yeah.
Yeah. He hits a nerve, I swear. I don't know.
Even if it didn't have anything to do with POTUS or the movement or whatever, let's say, he just makes your skin crawl. It's like watching Podesta talk.
Yeah, same kind of thing.
Or Obama. He makes my skin crawl another way.
You know what's funny is Obama, just watching him these days, listening to what he talks about. I mean, he is so out of his ilk, so out of his game. If you think about even when he spoke to when Bush won and he spoke for the Democrats back during that time, is that he was, that clear forward guy. He seems so weak and worn down right now. It's just amazing. It's like he's a shadow of himself. He's not buying himself anymore. You know what I'm saying? He's lost it.
It's called cellular degeneration from the clone. When you're genetically engineered, you're given a certain lifespan, and I think he's on the downward trend of that one.
Yeah, he's like Dolly the sheep. He's
right.
The chromosomes are breaking down on it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll tell you, he just really strikes me as funny. But yeah, I didn't hear anything about Lynch myself, and obviously, to use a pun, she's a linchpin on this, because if she really did talk, is that they've obviously had her under lock and key and protection, because obviously everybody would go after her to protect them. And it'll be interesting because she makes everybody else a liar comes before, like Comey.
Now, what you just said just made me think of something. Isn't it coincidental that with all the things that were going on, and when Comey and Lynch were supposed to be on the same day, et cetera, and then the funeral and everything, she ends up testifying behind closed doors the same day that Flynn is getting sentenced, and the judge makes a big media attraction move where nobody's reporting on Lynch.
Yeah, I wonder if that's actually what happened. I wonder if there was a duck and cover on it.
Yeah.
So
The more
that
I think about it.
they didn't announce it and they did a private. It would be it's an interesting thought. It would be a fun play. It would be a smart play, but
if indeed it happened today, right? I mean,
sure. I mean, we really don't know, but
right.
It's good to what if.
Yep. Okay, Wes, you were unmuted before. Now you're muted again. There you go.
I just I haven't heard anything about Lynch being even in a courtroom in the last couple weeks, 3 weeks. So I don't know that she's even been heard of. She may be in custody. She may be in protective custody, as you said, right now.
Yeah, it's almost like they've got her under wraps. It's like they're pointing everywhere else.
And, she was originally supposed to testify.
Nothing's come out at all. Nothing from her at all. Just Comey. So I find it interesting.
Yeah. We'll have to see what happens because I think she's next. But, there are more bombs to drop. I think we're getting closer to a shutdown. I actually think it's going to happen. And I may be wrong, but it just seems like it's going to. I don't see them coming together on this. I think the Dems want to play it out, and I don't think Pelosi wants to jeopardize her job by going against it. You know what I'm saying? Right. If she were to say, we should stay open. Not only does she undermine Schumer, but she loses those marginal votes that get her into office.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Well, hi, Cass. Good morning.
How are you?
Good. How are you feeling?
Haven't been to the dentist yet, so I'll reserve comment.
Well, once you do, you won't be able to.
That's right.
That will be interesting.
The comment will be.
Well, we can't understand you now. Just wait.
Oh, that's terrible.
That was good.
Yeah, well, I've got a big lump of cotton wool in my mouth.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Oh, at least it's better now than next week.
So we got the hard copy on Pell now. It looks like. I guess they brought it out in the open now. Is that what's going on, or is that something new?
I'll be quite honest with you. I'm suffering from IOL.
Okay.
That stands for information overload, and I'm so serious. It's not funny because I've just got it coming at me. I'm working on my own 3 projects that I've researched myself, but there's all these amazing people out there who are sending me so much stuff that I'm just like, I can't. All I can do is say thanks. Thank you, everyone that's sending stuff. To anyone who's watching who is doing that, but I just can't even get to it. I can't even look at it. I do know all about the Flynn situation. As far as Australian news today, so I'm sorry that I couldn't come in with some Aussie news. Tomorrow I'll be right up with it. Got more time, so I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
This Saturday, the Aussie Yellow Jackets are having a march. Is it Saturday or Sunday? In Australia?
It depends where.
Okay. I thought I sent that to you, but I can't find it in your room. So.
I have to say, I was amazed to see Belgian people getting out on the streets.
That was on the weekend.
I know it, but it was
Prime Minister resigned today.
Yeah.
Didn't they use cannons on them? Water cannons, I mean?
Yeah. Well, one in France, they used poo-poo cannons on them, didn't they?
Yeah.
No, they put poop on the walls in the building.
Yeah. They got
the government building.
Yeah, they got sewage trucks and squirted out the sewage onto the buildings.
Wow.
So if that doesn't tell him Macron what you think of him, I don't know what does.
One thing I noticed with that on the European side, and I'm not familiar with the Australian reaction because you really don't see that much like that. You know what's going on in Europe coming out of Australia, and then the U.S. we kind of see it a different way, right? But I was
a lot of it.
but those what I was fascinated by is when I look in France, pretty much all Europe, but mostly what we saw was in France, is the equipment and the preparation they have available that they can muster rather quickly for control. I mean, in the U.S., I remember Ferguson and I remember Baltimore, right? Which were kind of like the most recent violent ones. Now, what was it? It was local police. And then on Ferguson, after a while, they brought in some heavier equipment, and the National Guard was deployed for some security per se. But look at what they deployed in France.
Well, wasn't it NATO or UN or something? Didn't they have the blue helmets there?
There were some there as backstop, but the immediate, when they broke out the water cannons and stuff like that, that's what I'm thinking of. Is look at the equipment that they have for specifically mass rioting control. Now, why would you have that? Right? Why would you'd only have it if you're expecting it? Now, I'm not saying that they were expecting the yellow shirts per se, but they're expecting some form of populist reaction.
Sure.
Which that's what struck me is when I see those big white trucks, the water cannon trucks, and then I mean those suckers were brand new too. I mean they would put fire trucks to shame, right?
Yeah, it's like tipping. They tip their hand though by showing them.
Yeah,
it really lets the public know. And it's a funny thing with us is that if there was any need, and I know this kind of came up, we all talked about it at different times on the chat, but we had noticed that there's always a possibility that we could have riots or unrest or that type of thing could occur in different parts of the country, so on and so forth. You never know where it would be, but you have an idea of where it would be. And, with that in mind, ours, we don't have a secret force to come out. You're going to get the military and they're going to be, if you want to call it patriots, they're patriots going to come out and everybody would know who they are. This was almost like a subterfuge, kind of organization, something beneath the skin that we didn't really know about. I mean, it had, like you said, unused gear, and it was prepped for something else. Really, it's kind of nerve-wracking. I would not want to be in Europe right now, per se, if I were a citizen, because I really don't, the cabal is so strong there. And even though, Merkel steps down but stays as chancellor, and who are we really going to get to replace Macron? Is it going to just be another, another branch of the cabal? Is that what's going to happen?
Another puppet, right? Yeah, I was just fascinated by the quality of the equipment, the age or lack thereof of the equipment, even down to the body gear that the riot police or the men in black had on. It was just and the number of them, the quick reaction that they had to that. It's just, to me, it says, okay, not only that they have the equipment, they have a plan, and therefore you don't plan for what you don't expect, right? Or in essence, you plan for what you expect, right? And so you're sitting there, I'm going, that's what struck me. That's what really struck me, is because you got a disarmed society that is rebelling and being put down, in some cases with arms because they're shooting rubber bullets and stuff. But, the heavy equipment that's being brought out. I just find that.
What I find amazing about the whole thing is people are not backing down.
Correct.
No. Brussels, falling today. Go ahead.
I didn't want to cut you off, West.
No, go ahead.
If you think about it, a smart man, I'm not saying Macron's all that smart, but a smart person, if they were going to break away or do something different, I'm not really where I want to say where I get my expertise from, but if you wanted to break away and do something different, I think you would have a plan in place before you announced it, which where I'm going with that is he announced when Trump was there on the 11th that he wanted to have a French army or a European army. So I would certainly never announce that without already having it set up.
Good point.
That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and they're expecting, or they're saying that the riots in Belgium are supposed to be twice as violent as what we saw in France. They are really fed up in Belgium. So
Yeah.
They were
that's going to be
50
interesting.
million more Muslims in and drop them, and that's why the prime minister had to resign, because the people were not going for it. And I guess they're planning on taking them into France and Britain, and that's not going to go over too well either. And GT did a thing today. He had a video out that's on Twitter that he's standing with Yellow Jackets also. And now it's going to Australia. And then we've got Canada, who signed up with the UN. So it ought to be very interesting the next few weeks.
Hello, Canada.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these countries, I mean, they're you know, I can't help but think a lot of these countries are seeing what's going on in their own country and relating that to what's going on with the U.S., the forward that Trump is making over here, not to mention the hard stance that Poland took. And, you know, that somebody put a map out the other day that showed terrorist attacks in Europe. And they were all over, these little red dots all over Europe. But guess there was no red dots in Poland. They've locked it down.
They won't. They have for a long time. But there's been a lot of countries fighting the Muslim immigration for long time before President Trump was elected and before Q came along. So this is something. That's where all their migrants. That's who all their migrants are, and the same with us. I was involved. 2015. I went to a Reclaim Australia rally. It's all about stopping Sharia law, stopping the building of mosques, like hundreds and hundreds of them when we don't need them. And so it's something that's been building and building and building for a long time. But it caught the eye of the Australians. But I mean, I think that's just a pin drop or in the ocean of what is really behind it all. I mean, it's what's first got us upset. And strangely enough, I got to tell you, at that rally, I was wearing a yellow vest because I was a volunteer.
Isn't that's that funny? That's hilarious.
That's hilarious because all of it, all the volunteers had to be so that we could stand out, and we were kind of security as well. That's what we had on. Yellow vests, high vis, they're called here.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know for Australia. Tell us I mean, is it just? Did I get it right that they just made a deal with? I don't know if it was EU, but they were going to take more migrants. Was that the word I heard?
Well, did I get that? Actually, this is the guy, the opposition leader is spouting off because he's walking around with a big grin on his face because he thinks he's going to be the next prime minister, because our government, which is our Conservatives, our ruling government right now is our Conservatives, are falling to pieces. There's all kinds of stuff going on. And this Bill Shorten, he's an absolute disgraceful person. He's been accused of rape. Oh, he's disgusting. He was accused of rape years ago,
oh, gosh.
and it was just all swept under the rug, and he's just a filthy little man. And he's smugly saying that when it's like the Dems when they're going into Congress, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. He's put that up, and there will be a massive rebellion here if he gets into government, number one, and number two, if they try to do that, because they've got a coalition with the Greens. So, and our Greenies are.
That's how they're going to get into power.
Well, that's because they had to join because they couldn't get in by themselves. But guess who the Greens are heavily sponsored by, including and also this idiot, Bill Shorten, opposition leader, Soros funded to the hilt. and they're a union. They're union backed. So union and Soros. So that's what we really want, don't we?
So do you have a Patriot out there that's potential for you all? I mean, is there someone out there?
There's actually quite a few, and they're independent parties. So my wish would be for these people to get together. They're not strong enough to win government on their own, but for them to get together, sort out their policies, because most of their policies are great. Some disagree with the others and whatever, but just sort out something that's going to be doable in the interim while all of this collapse of the cabal and the Khazarian mafia, that's all of them, while they're being brought down. Just have a government that's going to have some sense of honesty,
Right.
rather than the ones who it's just going to be the opposite. Oh, by the way, you know how I am about the Clinton Foundation and all of the financial tyranny and all that kind of stuff. Oh my goodness. The more I dig, the more I learn. But yesterday on our news, and I nearly, you know how you say you throw up a little bit in your mouth. There was the Labor annual convention. So our Labor Party is our opposition. So it's your Democrats, basically, right? They gave life membership to 3 traders, and another trader handed it to them. So it was Julia Gillard, Kevin Rudd, and Paul Keating. Oh my goodness! Actually, I threw up a lot in my mouth when I saw him.
You got to quit riding the fence. I want you to say what's on your mind, okay? We got to be open here.
How do you really feel about it?
Yeah, what's your real feeling?
You only have to read Fiona Barnett's story about our satanic.
Sure.
Our satanic ritual abuse people in this country, which includes politicians, celebrities, judges, members of the clergy. Yeah.
It's funny. And again, I go around on this. I actually think the D class would be good for both the Australians and for the English or British people to come up.
And the Canadians, I believe.
And the Canadians, yes, exactly. Is that it would show what's going on. It would allow the people to say, look at this. This is evidence. I think we do the world a favor when we do it. I think it's important.
Absolutely.
I'm just wondering when the Canadians are going to rise up, because if Trudeau did sign something with the EU to come in with the soldiers that can actually take over, there's going to be a lot of people that are not going to like that.
Yeah. I believe it has started. I believe it has started in Canada. I've been sent a lot of stuff. Yeah. So it's not something that's going to just fall away by the wayside. I think there's going to be a worldwide rejection where people have woken up. There's more than ever now, which is fantastic.
Have you noticed a big difference in people, though? I mean, people are like sitting on the edge of their chairs.
Yep.
I'm noticing that a lot. Even the people that are doing the work of digging this stuff out, they're just like, I don't know if I can take anymore, because like you said, it is information overload.
Yeah, it is coming out. Everybody's there is an awakening happening. But more important, it's like I told someone yesterday, is that it's like my spidey sense is tingling, is that something's shifting right now. Is that all along I've been, all pro Q all the way through, but all of a sudden it felt like I felt an earth tremor just recently. Is that, boy, it's now getting to the news, and people in the news are actually starting to talk the other way. And for the first time, and granted, I'm not saying it's just a tremor. It's not an earthquake. Nothing has happened. But it's like we're on the cusp right now, I think there's change in the air, I guess is the best way to put it.
Absolutely.
I think Milkmaid is trying to jump in. I see her toggling on and off.
Come on in, Milkmaid.
Thank you. I figured you'd get rid of, you'd let me in so that I'd get rid get rid of my background noise. Have you thought, and I know we've discussed this before, but have you thought that maybe they want as many people awake as possible before they drop that D class, so it's not swept under the rug and scoffed at, and they, don't try to discredit it and say it never happened? I mean, look, Loretta Lynch was supposed to testify today, and there's been not a word about it. Not a word.
Well, you look at what Q was saying about the public awakening. The worst thing they fear is the public awakening. And he also did say that on 11/11, the world changed.
Right, but there's also still not everybody's awake yet, and maybe they really want everybody salivating for it.
Yeah, well, I think we have to get to that tipping point. Is that there at some point we'll hit the tipping point, and that's when it's got to drop. Is that when Australia's ready, when Europe's ready, when Great Britain, Canada. Well, Canada, I don't know about. They're smoking pot up there. I don't know what's going up there.
Well, they're coming along. I've been looking at Canada. They're coming along. Yeah.
And obviously, China is just worried about their economy right now, which is falling drastically. And so, they'll come along for that reason. But there's obviously, as a government, not as a people, but we need to get to that point where when it falls, it just knocks all the boulders over. And that's got to be that you're right. It's got to be released at the key time. And obviously, that's why they're holding on to it, because once it comes out that governments were working against governments, or more important, where people are looking and saying Trump, Trump, Trump in foreign countries, and then they find out what their country did to Trump, it would be, it has to be a landslide, but you've got to have that critical mass in place to allow the landslide.
It has to. Mass they're waiting for. I think that's what they're waiting for, is enough people to make it worthwhile bringing it out.
And that makes sense, because it has to be local to the individuals in those countries. Be it England, be it Australia, be it Belgium, etc. Because a comment you made earlier, Tex, is the aspect of the countries will look bad, and that will wake up the people. I was going to play not the sort of devil's advocate, but I have a kind of like a different view, in the sense that the foreign media, and Kaz could keep me honest here, the foreign media, from what we've seen in BBC, etc., has just vilified Trump almost even worse than our own media has. So when those people see their government working against Trump, I don't know that they would be that reactive to negativity. Now, if it shows that they're doing corrupt stuff, and now they see the corruption themselves, and now it surfaces, as Milkmaid is alluding to, or bringing that forward, then yeah, I can see that reaction.
I hear you.
Our media is as corrupt as yours. Don't you worry. There was an article this morning on basically saying on our news.com.au, basically, I actually just walked past it. My husband reads it, that particular, that's his news source. I walked past and I just laughed. I'm like, oh, there we go again. That great reporting. Yeah, biased reporting. They just don't. They've all been given the same 4 a.m. narrative, except here it's what time is it here when it's 4 a.m. there? It's probably 6 or 7 o'clock at night. So it's all the same. Rupert Murdoch and Fairfax own all of our media here, just like over there.
Let me ask you: is there a Q following in Australia?
Yes.
You're seeing? So they're tuned into it. People are tuning into it. So okay, good.
Yes,
that's exciting. That's exciting.
Do they see it the same way? In that, just a curiosity question, because a lot of the things that are in the Q posts, etc., although there are quite a few that have worldwide and stuff like that, they tend to be more U.S. centric, right?
Well, I've been asked that question before, and I always answered it exactly the same way. The cabal is not American.
Oh, no. That's for sure.
Okay, so what has happened is, as far as I'm concerned, is that the cabal, most of the heavy lifters are in Europe and always have been, but the tentacles have been out and sent out to every country
shadow
in the world.
governments, yeah.
And that is why, I guess, and American being, you know, the anointed superpower, has always had corrupt cabal puppets in control of the country until an alliance of military and others got together to decide that they were had to stop. And from what I understand, the US, there was going to be a military coup in 2008 to bring down Obama, etc., but it was stopped because they weren't ready. But what I also understand is that President Trump has been so-called the selected one for decades. So they had to wait till the time was right. And of course, if I can say the anointed one, he is the one, because he is now the basically the leader of the free world and the least corrupt politician probably in history to this point. And I'm not even going to go into Ronald Reagan. He was a lovely guy, but he got corrupted. He was bribed. He was he was a great president. But you read Kathy O'Brien's book, then you'll change your mind. But I think he was compromised.
Right.
So
Kaz, he was shot.
Yes, I understand. That was to shut him up. Now it all comes back to the financial system and Lee Wanta. That's why he was shot. So I could go on about that side of things for about 5 hours, but you have to understand that Kathy O'Brien was a MK Ultra presidential model, and she talks extensively about President Reagan. And what she did say, out of everyone who was involved in the whole MK Ultra stuff and the presidential models, was he was the nicest of all of them. And she too thinks that he was compromised.
Sure. Everybody got blackmailed out of that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the ultimate goal.
What I was referring to, if I may, just because I may have not been clear, what I was referring to was the actual viewing of the Q post, not the overarching cabal and the tentacles, etc. Which you're absolutely correct. No discrediting or criticism of what you said. It was more or less of because when you read certain decodes, it's talking about Mueller, or it's talking about the Supreme Court, or it's talking about the U.S. elections and stuff. They're very much U.S. centric. That's what I was referring to. And how do the Anons there in Australia go about the decoding perspective, and how do they internalize it, if you may? That's what I was trying to.
They do, like the rest of us have been doing. Like I think I knew a lot about who they were because I followed the presidential election right from the start. So of course, all these politicians from the USA started, the big mouths on the TV, and I was like, "Who are you?" And I would look into them, and you also have to remember that there on the Chans, there's a lot of Australian autists, Kiwi, or New Zealand autists, a lot of South Pacific or Southeast Asia. They're not just, that's why they're Anons. You don't know where they're from, but and I'm not taking it as a criticism either. Tennessee, I'm not. I'm just saying it's amazing how well informed people around the world are on certain things.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I could turn that around and say, I lived in the USA and went to school. None of the kids even had heard of Australia. So there's a lot of what I've come across personally. I could walk down the street in New York with a microphone and say, who's the Prime Minister of Australia? Who's the Foreign Minister? Who's our, Attorney General? And people would just look at me like I'm an idiot.
They can't answer who they are here, so don't feel bad.
That's America.
Most of the soy boys, though.
Yeah.
I would say this. Just the other thing to take into perspective that we don't see as Americans, and I think the actor Hugh Laurie, when he was doing an interview, someone made the comment to him. He's from Britain, and in fact, he had a comedy show with Stephen Fry for years on England TV, and it was one of the most popular things. And they were funny together. And someone asked Hugh Laurie. They said, "How did you get such a good, American accent?" He says, "You Americans don't realize is that every country you're in is that we get America pumped to us. And so for us, we're listening to American accents. We're listening to America events, American newscasters, American news. So, we kind of lose perspective being Americans is that we kind of like, we are kind of a drive out, as opposed to we don't get French information per se because we don't speak French, and yes, we do get some Australian information, but you're right. If you walk around, other than the people who are so involved in this right now, most of the people wouldn't know. But again, we go through it with our own country. Who's our vice president? Jimmy Carter, no one really knows, they just don't have an idea.
All I can say to sort of round off what my answer to TN is basically there's a lot we all didn't know before this movement. And now look at what we know. It doesn't matter what country you're in, as long as you can find the information or you're seeing the information presented by others. If let's say 3 years ago, did you check up and see what was happening in Australia on the news?
No.
Exactly.
Only if it was a major, noteworthy item, that kind of
Australian football. Unfortunately, that would be the kind of thing I would know about.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Let me talk to you about that ball. That is a fun weird ball.
You guys are
that is one weird ball.
Yeah, but those are tough guys. I got to tell you. I mean, they are brutes down there. You look at them in New Zealand, and gosh, I guess it's I don't know. Some of the indigenous people are like monsters. I mean, my gosh,
the Maoris
they don't
monsters,
they don't wear pads. It's crazy.
No way.
I mean, it's so much fun to watch.
Pussy if you wear pads.
That's right. Hey, let me ask you a question. Did you hear the story, Kaz, about Arlington Cemetery?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Very much so. That was an information overload meltdown. Not only did I actually see it myself, but I reckon I've been sent 20 or 30 different articles of it and videos. And, hey, it's great, but I can't read them all. But, no, it is awesome.
Yeah.
It's really a dark thing when you think about it. These people are really, I mean, it's kind of a messed up deal when you think of what these people are about. Yeah. I mean, in fact, Tennessee, you probably could walk through it better than I could. But just to put in perspective, again, the builder of the complex committed suicide by gun. Okay. I don't know if you know that, but the extension, the 74 acres, the guy who did all the concrete laying, the construction firm, killed himself. Yeah. Funny how this keeps happening in our country.
Isn't that convenient?
Convenient. And Bush's doctor, gets shot, and then that guy shoots himself. Is that you just keep seeing these things? I mean, after after so many times, how many times do you need to be told till you start looking? By the way, I'll miss you guys, but anyway.
No. I voted for Hillary. I voted for Obama twice. And, I have no ill will to her.
Oh, but I do.
You're not in the spirit of things, Wes.
It's Christmas time. Be nice, but I don't want to be.
It's for your own safety, darling.
My goodness.
When I first got into this, I actually remember the first time I sent someone a text saying, "I want you to know something. I'm not suicidal."
Right.
Yeah.
And that I wanted it to be known that just in case, that someone's going to find this poor schmuck down in Texas, that, is talking to 50 people on the internet. And yet, you just become so aware that this is the way of the world. I mean, this is what our world's become. And it's really kind of a scary thing. But yeah, they killed the guy, and we think now that Drained the Swamp was talking about this whole situation. And it's really
tunnels underneath the cemetery, right?
Tunnels. No, they actually built supposedly the concrete was built 25 feet down in that section. It was a bunker. And there are tunnels all through Washington, D.C. And if you follow the route path, it goes from a former restaurant that's a meteorite and serves Italian food and was accused of all kinds of crazy things.
And it's a favorite spliced food in New York.
But that was a fake story.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, we're comfortable now. Okay, now that we've covered our tails on that one, is that and the tunnels would lead straight under the river into Arlington Cemetery. And so it's a little frightening. I mean, it's a little bit dark when you realize that they would go that far. And theoretically, now we believe that's what the envelope said is Arlington's closed. Now, again, it's a good story, but obviously, there was some weird things that happened when Trump went to Arlington Cemetery.
Yes,
I got something for that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I got that. It was a little bit small for me to see, Tennessee. If you wouldn't mind explaining that a little bit further, because I can't. If I even brought it up or you brought it up, I don't know if we'd see it properly.
If Hatter can release the share, I can share something. Thank you, Hatter. That I put together. It's not the whole thing. I have to backtrack, but it's something that popped up from our discussion that I had today with that I had with Tex. I'm sorry, I was getting a weird message out of Zoom. Okay, so I did this today. Hopefully you could see it okay, Kaz and you guys, the rest of you. Can you see that okay?
Hang on, I might be able to see it better. Oh, way better now. This is way better. Yeah, awesome.
Yes, and YouTube can see it too.
Oh, great. So that infamous, or I shouldn't say infamous, that photo of POTUS standing in front of that headstone. So Tex was trying to figure out what the name was, but the wreath covers the last name. So I went snooping around at Arlington Arlington Cemetery, and I found a couple of interesting things. One, I bracketed down the grave by the veteran on the left and the veteran on the right, that Philip Gulliver and that Kenneth Mole. So if you look at it from the perspective of here's POTUS, here's the grave on the left, our left, and the grave on the right. If you go down here, you could easily see that this guy's in section 60, grave 10435. That's where that grave is within the satellite imagery of these are the headstones of the. Okay, so if you cut over all the way to the right, it's the guy on the right, the Kenneth Mole, and he's in 137, and that's its position. So I'm gonna shift all the way over to the upper left. If you look at it from saying, okay, Mole is in 137, Gulliver's in 135. So if POTUS is right in between, that should be 136, right? I mean 436 rather. Well, interestingly enough, there is no 436 in the database. It comes up as not found.
I was going to say that looked like a fake headstone anyway.
And then I went at the database from a different angle, as using the first two parts of the name, the Jesse Wade, because you can't see the last name, and I got a hit. But I got a hit on a grave that's 488. Well, when you do a close up to that grave marker, it's actually a group of Marines that died in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan. but the guy that's supposed to be in there is not in there.
Oh,
So
wow.
you have the grave that POTUS is standing at isn't in the database.
Okay, wait a minute. Is that the helicopter crash of the SEALs?
No, it's
Okay.
it's a smaller. It was a 6-member crew. I can do
Oh,
I can do a
I can
blow
see
up.
something. Hey, sorry, Tennessee, but see the number, the date of death, 0119. Didn't you come up with a 119 the other day? 1901?
Yeah, on the
9/11.
Yeah, that's the 119 on the
19th of
on
January.
2554. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Twice.
Good eye. You know what? I was so focused on the grave location that I didn't even pay attention to the dates of death.
Wait a minute. Did you say 0119?
Yeah, January 19th.
Okay, well, turn that around.
Yeah, 9/11.
9/11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the other angle to that decode. If you did that, it was 2554. If you did the numbers gig on it, you come up with a difference in rather the number of 2554 ends up being when it's summed 119. You do the mirror, it's 9/11. If you do D5 plus 45, is what January. If you do December 5th plus 45 days, which is D5, you come up with January 19th, 2019.
Oh,
See, that's why Tennessee lets me milk the cows and make the cheese, and he does the numbers.
no kidding.
Hey, excuse me, I'm taking credit for this one.
Yes,
This-
Dad.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
No,
One little tiny credit.
Okay, hat tip. So for sure. So the other thing that I found very interesting is I was thumbing through the different images. Now this one didn't come from the chans or any of the posts. This came from the album of the Arlington Museum. Right, there's a picture of POTUS walking with this team towards this position and then from this position. But there's also a picture of a ceremony that occurred in the pavilion. And guess what's in that ceremony? Look at the flag on the right-hand side here. The
Find the
Department of
keystone.
Army Senior Executive Services of the Army keystone. That's inside the pavilion.
Cool.
See the little plaid thing here. I didn't include the gentleman. It's the gentleman that was being honored. He was receiving for a family member or something because there was no write-up on it. But from the photos that were laid out, it looked like he was receiving a folded flag, and the ceremony looked like he was doing it for somebody that on somebody's behalf, right? And that's his arm. But that's the best photo of the flag. I mean, the flag is in many of the photos, but usually covered by somebody standing in front of it. So I found that one an interesting pointer as well, because that's also part of that whole decode, if you may, of the under the Arlington. So this was just an extension of that. I think I'll go back and look at those videos and everything that was put together and kind of embellish it and add it to the mix with Kaz's call out of 119.
Interesting.
And 119 2012, which isn't that long ago, right? It's not long ago at all for his death. And it's really, I mean, you could easily explain this as a database error, right? But it's so weird that it just happens to be the exact grave, the name, I should say, that Mr. Trump is standing at.
Yeah, exactly.
There are coincidences.
I don't
then
think
there's
it's
mathematically. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think it's a database error. I think you just need to figure it out.
No,
I
don't
mean, you and the Chans and everybody else, you'll all come up with an answer.
Well, I'm considering the number of people that are here and tracking this, and how many times have we heard that they've lost headstones or they got the wrong person in the wrong grave, that kind of deal. That's why I say it's a potential, but it's a dual direction database error. The name where he's standing at, which obviously is not even close to the same headstone, right? It's pointing to the wrong headstone, the wrong monument, because this is much further down the line in that section. I actually have an image of the section of Arlington, but then when you go at it from the perspective of saying, okay, I'm going to find who's in grave section 60, grave 10436, and you get a no hit. That's what these little black and white images are. That's just that search there by the grave, and you get a no hit. So that's a dual error. It's not just an error; it's a dual error, which makes it questionable that it is.
That's awesome. Thank you for going into that, because I really couldn't read it properly, and I was trying to read, and I was like, oh, I want to see this. But no, that's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll stop sharing now.
Good work on that. You know, I just pulled up gematria on it. The reverse ordinal is 6. The reverse full reduction is 6. The English ordinal is 3, and full reduction is 3. So I don't know if there's a message in there that they're trying to get to.
633.
Yeah, well, 3366, and so you know when you just look at the total graphic, but I got to play with the numbers and see if there's something there that I'm missing. But again, you know, I mean, maybe they're sending a message to someone that we know who you are and what you are. But anyway, it really is disgusting. Is I guess what bothered me. I had a feeling of just nausea that of all places to do something like this would be where they pick their bunker. I mean, such sacrilege, right? And that's what really bothers me. Just struck me as odd. And so we know where the keystone is now. We found the keystone, which he's been asking us about since good Lord knows when. Well, I mean,
and it's interesting because it's the same keystone that I did a deck, an infograph. I guess that's the reference for it, but I call it a deck because I put it as animated objects and stuff. But I did one on the keystone related to SES. And when we were looking at what the definition of the deep state was, because the SES is nothing more than ex-government officials perpetuating their government involvement through contract work. So it's interesting because that keystone is their flag, is their icon on their flag. The flag takes many different forms depending on the department. Obviously here, this is the Department of the Army, which is very interesting, which means they're in there, right? So pretty weird. I just thought this was kind of head scratching.
It's a good point. And then Kaz, I don't know if you heard about the thing about the ships, the prison ships.
I saw something a week or so ago, and that there were tons of them or something. They're coming through during the hurricanes. That's it. Well, that's all I know.
There were 3 of them built. They're gigantic. They look like moving buildings. And 3 of them were built, I think, in New
shipping
Orleans.
Containers, like they look.
Yeah, it looks like they're piled high with shipping containers, but they're actually rooms. And one of the comments in one of the Q posts was, "Are they going to Gitmo?" On the Q&A, actually, I think it was. Are they down in Gitmo? Are they going to Gitmo? And they said we're preparing 3 locations for them. And Trump or Q also made the comment, they'll never be able to walk the streets again. Well, if you're on the ocean, it's going to be tough to walk on the streets. So,
absolutely.
So it starts
for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, float out at sea.
How awesome.
Anybody else want to throw anything in there?
I actually did a gematria breakdown of that date that Jesse was supposedly killed. And if you break it down, it ends up going to 16 and then simple at 7. And that actually in gematria and Jewish gematria, that's slaughter/murder.
Roy.
Upbeat. I don't know. It's just, okay. Key the Twilight Zone theme.
Yeah.
It tells you, though, that obviously we feel enough in control that we're still trolling them. Is that the other thing that happened the other day? One of Trump's tweets, he made another misspelling, and under border safety or something like border control, he spelled border BOARDER. A boarder is someone who gets upon a ship. So it
So it's also someone who rents a room or something like that.
Sure.
Right.
So you could look at our illegal immigrants as boarders as well, but they're not paying us; we're paying them.
Right, but I was trying to refer back to that those prison ships. If we're going to use all three, it ties into the three down there, which may mean that
welcome aboard.
Yeah, internationally, maybe people are going to be on that. I mean, Bolton got the chance to make that big speech where he said, "We don't see you have any authority to the international court." And he says, "We don't accept it. We reject it. You mean nothing to us. And you have no right to interfere in our decisions." I mean, he came out just blunt, and he's right, because we are a sovereign nation. And it was just perfect. And now you're starting to see is that, at what point, if people were rebelling and they were our allies, but their government was corrupt, could we step in? You know what I'm saying? I mean, you almost get it to that level. And granted, we've got to take care of ourselves and get ourselves cleaned up first. But, you wonder, I mean, if it's going to be interesting. It's going to be real interesting. I think this is where you're going to see Russia play a role. I think, guys, Russia's our secret weapon, too. I know people want to rule them, but I think he and Putin are actually ready for this.
I think I've been working with him for a while. I see Putin as going to be an ally. I don't see him as an enemy.
Yeah, he's an ally in this world. Milkmaid, you were going to say something and I interrupted. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. There were a couple of things. First, back to your ships. What a better place to put people who were not our citizens. I'd take them to Gitmo for their trial and then stick them on a ship. Then they never set foot on U.S. soil.
Right, international waters.
Therefore, they don't get any rights of any kind. Okay.
Speaking about those ships, do you remember when that hurricane was bearing down on Hawaii a while back, and they spotted one of those prison ships lurking off the coast of Hawaii?
Yes.
It's kind of
actually, some of that was because it was there because of the volcano too.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. It was a volcano. Yeah. I'm sorry. I knew it was some type of natural disaster, but it was.
And we haven't had very many of those, have we?
Right. It's just odd that they would have a prison ship lurking off the coast of Hawaii, and now they're coming into potentially playing a bigger role. My neighbor is actually I'll just say retired military, and I was speaking with him today, and I brought up the fact that we have planes going out every night from our airport going down to Guantanamo Bay. And
in fact, between it goes down from you see all the major port locations along the East Coast seem to be having planes going down. Yeah. Is that I was looking at it, I saw, for example, Jacksonville had a couple go out. I don't know what it means, but a C-130 or something like that. And then a couple smaller Cessnas were going out. I don't know in terms of the military or the Air Force what that means, but I know nothing about planes. But we've seen these travels going on, and then you've seen it out of the D.C. area, and then you've seen it out, further north. So obviously along our bases along the water, they're moving something. And
well, if you think about it, they've been telling us Obama only had a handful of people there. He let most of them go. They just dropped the 305th down there last week or the week before, and they're the military police division. Why would they go down there just to handle a couple of people? You know what I mean?
They sent 1,000. They sent 1,000 people down there.
Yeah.
And so, how many inmates do we have there now? It's like 19 or something.
Yeah, it's a real small number. Yeah.
Right.
Milkmaid, go ahead and finish your thought. Yeah, please.
I want to go back to the grave marker real quick. Mad Hatter brought up the fact that he was running the gematria through different nationality gematrias. And I know nothing about it. I'm not going to pretend. But you guys, when you come up with your numbers, Tennessee and Tex, they make sense to me, which is really odd. So you got to be good, okay? But what I wanted to bring up was the grave marker, the name. What nationality is the name? That might have to do with the gematria that you use. That's all. It's just a point for you to think about when you're
No, and I don't know.
Well, I was also thinking
there's two different gematrias. You have the normal gematria. I don't know. Gematria, then you got the Jewish gematria. That's the only two that I've really heard about.
And
Okay.
in terms of no, you're actually onto something, man, Milkmaid, because gematria was originally was used in England with Latin and other languages, and it just so like let's say Latin or say Hebrew, you only have 22 letters, or Russian or whatever it is. So it does lay the graph out different. So there is something to say that is actually true ciphering. I mean, that is actually what we're doing is like a toy compared to what gematria is really made for. And you're onto something that we should look at, because gematria was transferring, information. You had to know the languages and, transfer it, and how many turns of the gematria you can do. Is you had to know if it was turning or not. In other words, rotating A was no longer 1, A was now 5, and it starts at that number. And so there is a lot of things to look at. So yeah, we'll look at it. That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Yeah, and notice how I kind of
an extra point to throw another monkey in your wrench.
Yeah,
we like monkeys.
The notice that's how I kind of attempt to stay away from that. Not to say that we won't use it, not at all. I'm saying that in some of the stuff that I've done with the numbers, I guess I don't know if you can call it gematria or not. I don't refer to it because the one that I'm using is the mathematically impossible moniker that Q gives us, and doing just very simple math. Right?
Yeah, in terms of what you do, you actually use ordinals more than you use anything.
Yeah.
Whereas I look at gematria, but this is simple gematria. I mean, it's not even getting complex. And that's where the Q clock comes in, because when the Q clock turns, that would also turn your gematria, would be what you would do. Is that if it moves 4 sections, then you're supposed to move your gematria 4 sections, or gematria. But anyway, okay.
No, and I think we should do that, because I'm just, I made that comment because it's kind of like, well, the recent video that we saw that basically went through all kinds of contortions to come up with Gitmo, right? And I'm looking at him going, Q doesn't make it that hard.
No, we watched. There's one person who's super well known for quote unquote decodes with gematria with numbers, and he actually gets carried away. Is that's not how ciphering works. Okay, he's finding an answer, but I think he has a solution first, and then likes to hop to all the numbers he's stored up and kind of poke you around to all different spots to look good. And I think he's getting carried away. I mean,
the question the answer.
Yeah. It's kind of like, you find the answer and then you make the question work. You know what I'm saying? Or you make it work in. And I think that's, but I don't want to say something bad, because he works really hard. He's a great Chan guy. I mean, I know he's a huge contributor. So, but sometimes you can get carried away with trying to find the rabbits in the clouds kind of thing. And I think that happens.
Heard of the other way that they supposedly communicate through a language called Twilight language?
Twilight?
I never heard it called Twilight, but you could explain. I might.
Well, come on now. Those are vampires. Everybody knows that now.
Actually, I can't explain. I should have never brought it up. But if you want to do a little bit of digging, just type in Twilight language into your search bar, and it will give you information on that. And that is supposedly, and I've read that in different books, and people on the chans have brought it up since all of this Q is cranked up. And there's a language called Twilight language that elites, people in government, CIA, FBI, whoever, use. That way they can communicate they can have speeches, they can have conversations, and to you and I, it's just we take it for the face, but there's actually a whole underlying meaning behind what they're saying.
Sounds like loaded language to me, Tex.
Yes, it does. Yeah, that's yeah. I see what you're talking about.
Sounds like pig Latin.
Yeah. I mean, you got to know what you're looking for and what you're listening for, and you know.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting. I dug into it just a little bit when I first read about it, and it's very interesting. There's a lot of background to it.
Yeah, it actually goes back to Hinduism and Vajrayana and Buddhism, and those texts and those words that were used back then, and kind of gets translated through. It's kind of like if you took the Navajo language, which is a dead language, and then put it through Gematria, it would be virtually indecipherable for people.
Right.
These words would be like code words. Is that if you said a word, it would sound like something, but if you said Shavakas, okay, or Shravakas, I should say, which means, let's say, I can't unriddle or whatever. And that would be something, if you said speech, people would just blow it off that they didn't understand you. But the people in the know would know what that means. So, yeah, good point. Good. I'll take a look at this. My guy is, there's a gentleman who did a great series of works. I think his name was, I want to say Friedman, but he did a phenomenal series of works on it. So he's the cipher guy that I use, but I'll look this up. Thanks.
Just a side note. I just happened to see it flash on my screen. We all watched Laverne and Shirley back in the 70s, right?
You mean Schlemazel?
Yeah, Penny Marshall died.
Yeah.
No, I never saw it.
Yeah, they just announced that Penny Marshall had died.
Yeah,
oh, you're kidding me.
That's beautiful.
Wow.
Isn't she Meathead's wife?
No. She was the sister of what is that guy's name, Marshall?
Gary Marshall?
Gary
Marshall.
But
Yeah.
I thought she was married to Carl Reiner, was it? No, Carl's the dad. Rob Reiner's the dad. Yeah, I thought, wasn't she married to Carl Reiner?
I don't think so.
Okay, I might be off.
Okay, so
that's sad.
That's just pitiful. We're getting to the age now that, we're getting to that age, where all of our childhood stars are starting to pass, back when you could actually watch TV with.
So we all saw Mika Brzezinski show True Colors the other day on TV, and did you notice she was off the air the next day?
No.
She wasn't. She was.
Please enlighten.
For as much as I watched. Yeah.
She used a derogatory term for Trump and who else was it? Who was she talking about? And his basically, whatever. And it was, I forget who else it was about, but anyway, she didn't show up for work the next day. She apologized and didn't show up for work the next day, or wasn't at work. So I don't know if they suspended her for a day, or if she just took a day to cool, the air, so she didn't have to deal with it. But it was pretty interesting to see her talk.
Yeah.
Tells you what she thinks, is that the True Colors came out. The other thing I want to throw out before we throw out, no, I don't want to throw it out. I want to throw it out, is that the wall, someone started a GoFundMe, and he's actually a triple amputee from one of the wars. And he is, I think someone mentioned that he may have been the guy who was thrown off of Facebook and then put back on. He's a war hero. And
that was my question. I didn't look it up yet, and I wanted to know if he was the same guy that Facebook had taken all of his ad money, like $350,000 or something like that.
Right. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's the one, but now he's doing a GoFundMe for the wall. 30 days to get $1 billion for the wall for President Trump. And what they're going to do is they're going to do it, and they've already talked to the Treasury as to how it can go straight into the government and do it through bonds. They would purchase bonds and turn them into the government. And he's got all kinds of different ways, but they're working through the legalities. And it was very emotional actually listening to it. And it was obviously it was a computer voice talking, but to hear it said was really that, he was saying for all he's done for us, is that let's help him build his wall because he's kept all his promises. And it was touching. I mean, I have to tell you, I really was really shocked. First day, they raised $142,000.
And also, his family came over as citizens. They came into the country and became legal citizens the right way. So he is the first generation that was born here, apparently. And if anybody can help out with that, that would be great.
So it's not the same guy then.
We don't know yet. We don't know.
No, it's not, because the guy that Milkmaid is referencing lost his legs and an arm, but he's not incapable of speech or anything like that.
He might just be hiding his voice.
Oh, I guess he could have been. But the guy that Facebook took his money and then took him down, he's been on TV and stuff. So, but anyways, it doesn't sound like the same person. Doesn't matter. I mean, that it was just
still a great thing.
Oh yeah. It had nothing detracting from the effort or anything like that. It was just more or less that's something that Milkmaid was wondering about, and that's all. That's the only reason I made the comment. If it was the guy that had been on publicizing that Facebook took him down after taking $30,000 of his money.
That just would have been very apropos if it was him. That's all.
Yeah, it would have been great. A major touche.
He is on Facebook. His name is Brian Colfage Jr. He's got 4 awful good-looking medals on his chest, and we raised $45,000. He said the first day. Now I had $142,000 when I looked today. Maybe I looked at the wrong thing, but let me just see real quick.
Peck, those awful good looking medals come at a cost.
Oh, believe me, he paid it. He paid it for us. They're at 271 already. 271,000.
That is awesome.
Raised by 4,327 people in one day. If you want to go to GoFundMe, it's one of the trending campaigns, and you can donate $1 or I guess $10. Looks like the lowest denomination on here. And some people have donated large amounts, but most of it is $10, $25, $50.
That's perfect.
And he's a blue check Facebook page, and he's a public figure and a triple amputee veteran. You can follow him on Facebook at Brian Colfage Jr. And the campaign is set to the max that GoFundMe has at the moment, which is $1 billion. So they're going for the juggler. 66,000 shares on Facebook. Okay, so that's my part on that. I just want to throw that out with this guy. I think this is patriotism 10 times over. I mean, God.
Great. And his video is awesome. If you guys can get on Twitter and find his video, we also have it in our Discord. It's a great video.
Yeah.
I thank you, Milkmaid, for finding that.
Yeah. It is a great video. So Q's been quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Too quiet.
Usually when he's quiet, we got a lot going on in the background.
Yeah. That's what I always think, is that he's waiting for, he's given us all the info we need. I mean, it's all coming out in different ways now. Is that the chance, all of a sudden things are falling down the, like the pinball machine now, the things are flipping down and hitting the flippers again, bounce back up. And, there's just a lot bubbling. I mean, a lot of things bubbling. ICE, just for y'all to know, is doing great here in Texas. I try and post as much as I can in our group chat, but they've just been doing a phenomenal job, both with drugs, deportations, criminal activity, and then just protecting the state. Now, granted, one of the things that happens with Texas is that we're on the border with Oaxaca, and I think it's Chiapas is the other one, and those are high cartel, low economy areas. So there's a lot of reason for the traffickers not to go, or the migrants, or whatever you want to call them, the invaders, to go through there. And, because you could get kidnapped, it's very dangerous. So we actually have border protection simply by their crime on one part of our state. And the other part of the wall is what Trump is trying to build for us. because there's a big stretch that we really need done because the Rio Grande goes so shallow. And so that's going on with that. What's up with SpaceX? Anybody got any news on that?
I know they put off the launch for today, and it's supposed to launch again tomorrow morning. I'm sorry, West.
No, I was just going to say Pence was supposed to be there for the launch.
Who's going to be there?
Vice President Pence.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, that's interesting. Is that Elon Musk? Boy, that's expensive when you lose a day like that, I guess. But sorry about that. And he lost the the return thing into the ocean the other day or other month, whatever it was. But it's interesting to see he's still trying to make it work. But he's playing around with money. I hope he doesn't get himself in trouble. So Next subject, anybody?
I wanted to bring up the fact that the Fed is trying to spike the rates again. He's saying that the one that Trump put in, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's saying that December is going to be the worst month in our economy, and he's trying to spike our rates.
Right, and we want him to, because with all the property we've brought, all the production we brought back into the U.S., we'll be able to build everything we need here, and that's our goal. And if we have a bad economy, we can get rid of the Fed. And that's what Trump's doing. He's saying, we're good. You're killing us. And that opens the door for a Fed audit and pull the curtain behind the Wizard of Oz, and we realize they have no money there.
Right. And nothing backed up. When real people find out that there's no gold, I don't think everybody knows that. Nothing backing up that dollar except for Rothschilds and Soros and.
There is gold, and but it's just not where people think it is. And I was saying to you before about Leo Wanta. I've got another project coming up as part of my financial tyranny obsession, and it involves Lee Wanta and what happened to his $32 trillion.
I'm not familiar with that. Who is this person?
You're going to have to watch my video.
I always will. There you go.
You made a video on that chump change?
Hey, I've made a video on more chump change than that. Okay, I'll give you a brief preview of what's coming up. Leo Wanta was an ambassador for the United States, but he also became very good friends with Ronald Reagan. That's why I interjected before Milkmaid about, well, you said the president had been shot twice. Yes, he had, and that was Deep State trying to shut him up. Twice they tried to shoot him. The first time Leo Wanta stopped it. Okay, Leo Wanta was given a mandate by the President of the United States, Mr. Ronald Reagan, and that's where the good guy part comes in. God bless his soul. But the mandate was for Leo wanted to negotiate the ending of the Cold War and to bring Russia down from being a communist nation to become what they are now. And he gave Lee, I keep calling him Leon, it's Lee, or Leo, gave him a line of credit for $150 billion to start shaking up the financial world in Russia, which wasn't great in the first place. But he amassed a lot of money legitimately during that time as a private citizen. And his promise, according to the mandate of President, Reagan. President Reagan was to rectify basically clear all the debt of the United States completely, repay monies promised to other countries from the United States that were never repaid by the previous presidents, aka Bush, Scherf. Also got a really good, I think I've uploaded that to our channel here, the Scherf one. That's a really long one. I tend to get like that because I have so much information. I just blurt it out. But there's a lot more to this. You know, I think you'll have, recently there's a lot of it going around about Leah Wanta. This is a killer, literally. Leah Wanta, and it ties into the Clintons, was approached by Vincent, what's his name, the guys that got killed? Vince, by the Clintons.
Foster.
Vince Foster. Vince Foster approached Lee to donate $250 million to the Clintons' Children Foundation or initiative or whatever they call that, another rort of theirs. And Lee, being a very he had so much money that he was like, sure, it's for the kids. Anyway, he had a partner in business, and he and the partner set it all up. Lee was in Switzerland at the time, and has got all the legitimate records of transferring the money to whoever it was supposed to go to for the Clinton Children's Fund. And then Vincent went back to the United States. I think Lee Wanta said that his friend who helped set it all up with him was poisoned with rat poisoning within 3 days of the agreement. And then shortly after that, Vince Foster was, he killed himself.
Arkansas.
It was directly after they received the $250 million from Lee Wanta. That's doesn't even touch the sides of what they've done to Lee Wanta. And it goes across. I've got a lot of financial, going into the central banking and right back in its history, right back when, I'm talking centuries. And but when you get into the 20th century, into the 50s and 60s, Lee Wanta's name comes up everywhere. He has had that $32 trillion basically confiscated from him, even though it's still showing that it's his. He can't access any of it because the deep state cut him off at every angle. So, and I can also relate to it, to his story, because, and whilst he's at the top of the tree, probably the world's richest man, standing at this moment, or still alive. I've done another little presentation on Harmon Wilfred, who was put through the same thing, and by trying to negotiate gold bonds for the US government, I think it was, and he's now living in exile in New Zealand. He can't. He's stateless, so he basically calls himself the first American refugee. So New Zealand keep trying to deport him, but they can't because he hasn't got a passport, because the US embassy wouldn't renew his passport. He's been cut off from his wife, who is Canada's Carolyn Dare, the Dare Foods. She's been cut off by her brothers from accessing any of her shares or any dividends from her shares. They've just destroyed it. It was all CIA. And to me, it's just like, I've heard this story, but this one's 20 times as big. Poor Harmon's still there, although haven't heard anything from Harmon since May this year. So I don't know what's happened to Harmon, but it's all of this stuff, everything that's going on. And that's why I keep saying it goes back to the global side of things, is all to do with the money. And the person that actually has made it even worse for everybody in this entire world, I am absolutely certain without fail, is the man that they just so-called buried, George W.H. Bush / Scherf.
Yeah, I think...
was he silent at the same time that Assange did?
Sorry?
Did your Harmon, the one that you're speaking of, did he go silent at the same time Assange did?
No, see, he's not in the public spotlight. It was through, I'm sure you've all heard of Jason Goodman. He does the Crowdsource the Truth, and he does the Sunday with Charles Ortel, who, yeah. Earlier this year, Jason did, I think there's 11 or 12 weekly, at least 1 hour interviews with Harmon via Skype, and with Carolyn, because they get her in Canada. Actually, she's hiding in Germany, I think, at the moment. And then Jason went to New Zealand to actually see Harmon and filmed him, did 2 episodes on that. And that was when Hillary Clinton was in New Zealand. And since Jason was there in, it might have been April, or it might have been May. I haven't seen a single thing. Jason hasn't posted anything about him. I've gone to Harmon's website, gone and looked everywhere, and nothing, not a single word, nothing. And nothing on Carolyn either. So that's a bit scary. But it's the same thing. It's all to do with the withholding the funds. You know, they know, these bankers know that they've printed hundreds of thousands of trillions more money than there is gold available that's actually registered.
Okay.
And when they get found out, they're gone. They're just gone. It's just boom. It's going to hit. I don't even know how it hasn't, because so many people have been. Okay. Okay, Mad Hatter, we'll hang in there. I don't know how so many people have been researching this for decades. And it's open source. But
Fascinating.
I'll put together all bits and pieces of his stuff, and I'll be doing. I'm going to try and do 1 hour parts to it so that it's easy to present.
Well, one of the worry things with like Lee Wanta is he's what, 82 now?
He's my mum's age. He's 78.
Oh, okay. And then I don't know if you just didn't mention it, but he was imprisoned wrongly just on no charges over the money, and in chains and ankle chains and all the whole 9 yards for years.
And so was Harmon. Was Harmon. Exactly the same thing. They arrested him in Canada and no warrant, no judgment, just threw him straight in one of their federal prisons underground for 2 years. And and then they extradited him back to his home state to face charges of something to do with his ex-wife or something, and it was just ridiculous. And the same thing happened to Lee.
Yeah, saying that he didn't pay the alimony or something stupid like that, but he'd paid
Harmon,
Why?
Oh, no, it wasn't that. It was something to do with the kids. He wanted custody of his kids. This is Harmon.
Well, that was Harmon. That was Harmon.
Lee was arrested, thrown in jail without a warrant, without anything. And then when he got out of jail, he was rearrested because they said he owed $14,000 in taxes. And he said he'd already paid them twice, even though he knew he didn't owe them anything, and ended up having to pay them 3 times because he said, I've got $32 trillion. They're trumping up charges against me. 14,000 is nothing, just to get him off my back, but they wouldn't leave him alone.
Right.
So he's still in safe houses. So.
And then I think there was something to do with Al Gore helping to get him out of jail at one point too.
I don't know if he got him out. He took him a packet of chips and a Pepsi. And I don't know if he actually got him out of jail, though, but they became friends. And apparently he's saying, and you've obviously seen the same stuff I've seen, is that Gore was a good guy and knew he'd had the election stolen from him. And Lee Wanta believes that he should have been, before Trump, the last duly elected president, because Lee still follows the mandate from President Reagan, and he's sticking to that, he said, to the day he dies, and that was to fix the USA's debt,
financial crisis,
wipe it out, and then help pay back the countries that were promised money and build the fast rail.
Talk about patriots that some people have never heard of. I mean, the persecution these 2 men have gone through over trying to pay off our debt. Well, not technically ours, but, we didn't incur it ourselves. The powers that be did. But, these men, and to be that age and still being persecuted over it It's amazing. And still have their fortitude to say, no, this is where the money's supposed to go.
Yep. And the fact that, I mean, of course, I'm surprised he's still alive. I am totally surprised.
That was my point when I jumped in, was his age. Yeah.
Yeah. He looks like he's still pretty sprightly. There's a lot of fairly youthful 78-year-olds around.
I think
I know. I have a 9-year-old neighbor.
I think you're saying Dean, that you're surprised he's still alive, not due to his age.
Well, no, not so much that I'm surprised he's still alive, number one, just over the money.
Yeah.
Okay? But then again, the point is, too, he's getting up there in years, and none of us are invulnerable to age.
Exactly.
You know, it does happen, and that would be the perfect excuse for all that money to disappear without having its actual purpose done.
I can't. He's got all the documentation that the Federal Reserve actually acknowledged, because he's paying taxes on it. He's paying taxes on the 32 trillion. And one of the just recent years, he paid 4.5 trillion in tax that would have wiped out the national debt for the USA then. So he's like, well, why haven't they done it? You know what I mean? They won't give. Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, he has 2,000 metric tons of gold in Switzerland that he has the and they call them the book codes.
Yeah.
That if they kill him, they'll never get them. They'll never get it. They'll never get that. And
it'll sit in that bank forever.
Exactly. And it'll go to his family, but and his 32 trillion they can't take either, because it's public record and acknowledged in courts of law that it was supposed to be given back to him. So it's like he's too public, which is great. You know, too public as far as records they can't erase. Not publicly as in plastered all over the news, but it's they can't hide those records. So
I think one focus presentation cast on that, but from an angle of Vince Foster and that whole exchange that went on, and the respective deaths and so forth that you bring. I think that would be a good way to start to branch out from there, right? To create a mini series, if you may, on that gentleman and the whole storyline, because at one time it might be overwhelming. You have the depth galore. But it would be
that's why I would do it in stages. First, the history, like, you know, who is he? Where did he come from? How did he end up receiving a mandate from Reagan, and what was that?
Right.
And then go into stages where it's next, and then what happened? Okay, and this is what happened. And I quite honestly believe the Clinton thing was a side issue for him. You know,
but it wasn't a side issue from the Clinton side.
Oh, heck no. And for him it was peanuts, for them it wasn't, right? Exactly. But he obviously is fully aware of what's going on. He's exceptionally intellectually bright, always has been. The guy knows what he's talking about. He's got one goal, and that is to free the people of the United States. Always has been, always will be. He was given the opportunity by President Reagan, and I'm sure the $150 billion line of credit that he was given, he actually converted into, because he was a very good businessman, and he probably gave it back fairly quickly. So he was lucky enough to get the opportunity, but Reagan didn't choose him for nothing to carry out the task. And this is why I was talking about the NESARA and GSARA. It was purposely brought down in 2001 when George Bush took over. It's all connected. It's all connected because it's a Bush family member. Daddy Bush would have said to George, no way, no, you're not doing that. And, of course, Clinton would have been praised for signing that bill, the NESARA bill, that was the last bill he signed before he finished finished up as president. So he would have looked great. And then Billy's come in and, Georgie's come in and gone, yeah, no, we're not doing that. Veto, no, sorry. So the niece Sarah was a very similar situation, and I'm absolutely certain that Wanta was, the Wanta funds were to be the funds that were to be used in that. So there you go. But he also tried to, he wanted to use all some of his funds, and there's also documentation of that, to bring Greece back out of their financial, how they just entirely collapsed, and they said that Europe saved them and whatever. Well, I've just got a feeling it was Lee Wanta, not Europe. Anyway, so I am nice because I have to go, where.
Okay. Well, listen, we appreciate all the information.
My pleasure.
You were wonderful. We love it.
Thank you.
Good timing. You have a great night, and have a great show, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Kaz.
Thank you, Kaz.
See you, Milkmaid. Mad Hatter, TN Homesteader, West. Who have I missed? Mad Hatter's out there with his emergency. Tell him I said bye-bye.
Okay.
We will.
We'll do.
Good night.
Good night.
Just for what it's worth, we've got some POTUS tweets. And West, would you happen to have those in front of you? And there's a little coding in the message.
Yeah. Let me.
Did you see that? The coding in it? Where
I know. I'm just dropping them in Discord. I didn't really get a chance to scan them, so I just
let me look. You want to read them, or you want me to?
Go ahead, please.
Okay. First one was around 1 hour ago, and it's Donald J. Trump, the real Donald J. Trump. I can't. If someone wants to share them while I'm talking about him, that would be great. I don't have to share. Go ahead.
Okay. It's coming up. Which one are you doing? The America?
I'm starting at T3831.
Oh, you're doing QMAP.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. I went to his Twitter.
Well, that makes sense. So.
Okay.
So catch the coding in here for me, folks, if you notice it, as you look at what he wrote.
Can you guys see that okay?
Yeah, great.
Okay, the Democrats are saying loud and clear that they do not want to build a concrete wall, but we are not building a concrete wall. We are building artistically designed steel slats so that you can easily see through it. It will be beautiful, and at the same time, will give our country the security that our citizens deserve. It will. Share what I'm talking about. Yep. I don't have to share. Go ahead.
Somebody's playing the YouTube side.
Okay.
On QMAP that got cut off. I don't know what happened because it's
okay. Let me go ahead.
Did you go to the next one? Did you go to the next one?
I'm going to the next one. Right.
Okay.
It will be beautiful and at the same time give our country the security that our citizens deserve. It will go up fast and save us billions of dollars a month once completed. That's the first two, and then the second combination goes, America is the greatest country in the world, and my job is to fight for all citizens, even those that made mistakes. Congratulations to the Senate on the bipartisan passing of the historic criminal justice reform bill, which will keep our communities safer and provide hope and a second chance to those who earn it. In addition to everything else, billions of dollars will be saved. I look forward to signing this into law. Chew on the, see if you can catch what I saw. And let's hear what you guys think.
I'm going back to 31.
Caps, concrete wall. Think about what we were talking about earlier. The concrete that was used to pour 25 feet below the cemetery. Does that strike you as maybe what he's kind of making a little comment about?
Well, steel slats are also used, basically iron bars.
Absolutely.
for
The rebar.
jail.
You're thinking rebar.
No, well, no, I was
Well,
thinking
still
jail.
slashes no jail.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then it says it will be beautiful. And then the interesting thing is how he keeps bringing up billions.
Mhm.
So, and then,
Well, and then he's also protecting people even though they've made mistakes.
yes, that was the other thing that caught my attention. And the fact that you get a second chance to those who earn it. In addition to everything else, billions of dollars will be saved. I look forward to signing this into law. My thinking was that, that's maybe a cry out to those who know they're on the bubble. If you want to use a sporting
The
term.
White House operators are open and
and the operators are waiting.
That number is 800.
Actually, I never shared that, but there's a decode I did on 3Qs. Remember that text? I shared it with you. This was before.
Yes, I do. I do remember.
We can kind of look at that next time around. Because it puts into context, if the interpretation is correct on these tweets, but it puts into context the messages that POTUS is putting out in Q also as to ready to make some deals.
Yeah, for the people who are on the bubble, not necessarily the ones that are.
No.
Yeah,
no.
to
those that warrant it, those that
yes,
it.
And want to stay off the ship, kind of thing. So,
right. Well, it's like right here. It says a second chance to those who earn it. Right.
Right. Exactly. And you know what? That could be still people in the White House. I mean,
Oh yeah.
There's people who we've questioned, and we're doing look at a few people in the White House that are in the positions of relative power that we know of. That may be an issue. We've got to look into it, but. Maybe got an envelope that we don't understand. So we're digging.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wes, any thoughts?
Build the wall.
Yeah, I think that was screw the iron slats. Give me concrete.
I want something they can't blow up, crawl over, or climb under.
Let me tell you, they can't climb. They can't go through them. They are narrow. I mean, the way they're built is really good. I mean,
but have you seen the monkey climb them?
Yeah.
Oh well, I'm sure there's a monkey could maybe. Or
No. I've seen them do the.
Have I seen people
climb.
doing it? Yeah, but at the very top, they are concrete now. They're like 9 feet of concrete at the very top. And at least the ones I've seen going up. And that actually prevents you. You're going to slide back down when you get to that point. You can't get beyond that.
Yeah.
At the very top of it. So, but yeah, the other side is how deep they go. Because if they don't go deep, one of the things, the tunnels for the drug traffickers, we constantly find them along the border. I mean, it's nuts.
I'd say we do the college thing, and we have tracks on the upper part of the wall that's constantly spraying them with oil. They just go from one end to the other spraying oil.
It's the truth. It's like WD-40 all day long.
Yeah.
That's a land contamination, boys. Sorry, gentlemen.
Oh, we can stick gators in here on both sides.
It's fish oil.
Right.
I don't understand why we didn't send our microwave units down there and just line them up shoulder to shoulder, however far apart they have to be, and spread a microwave out for a couple 100 feet in front of them, and nothing will pass by. Just leave them on.
Well,
hold that thought.
Okay. Well, it's funny you said that. First of all, they are there, and
they haven't needed them yet.
They haven't needed them yet, and obviously they're breaking down because now they're just demanding a ransom from us. $50,000. I won't freedom, but I'll take $50,000 instead.
Oh, I saw this perfect meme on that. It's at the upper part of it. It was this kind of like the woman from the caravan with a child, and it said on the upper part it says, "I can't go back. It's too dangerous. But for $50,000, I'll take a crack at it."
The hypocrisy only goes so far,
$50,000 in El Salvador would go a long way.
Oh yeah,
if you could keep it. I bet you dollars
yeah.
donuts, nobody'd be able to keep it because
They wouldn't make it down. They wouldn't get out of Mexico
home
with it.
Right, I know.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, yeah, if they got the money, they never got out of the country.
That's why our government is sending $4.6 billion down there.
No, we should not be sending any money down there anymore.
We are already promised to send them $4.6 billion and not put any more money into the wall. That's why the GoFundMe.
Well, you know what? I have a feeling there's more behind that than we know.
There was a theory about that, you know.
Yeah, is that it was actually like we were going to control the expense, the spending of it, I guess is the way I would put it. And it would have to revolve around their border wall down, which is a fence, you know, on the bottom side, even though they've got one, it's worthless. And the money would go towards that and, you know, guarding it. And, you know, here, we do it with NATO. Why can't we help Mexico? You know, is that no? But I'm saying we help Mexico. It helps us specifically as a country, whereas NATO doesn't do for us. Right. And so there is a certain reason to do it. Now, I'm not sure about the other countries what they've got planned, but I was shocked to see the money being spent. But again, it is against our territory. So you know, I mean, it's a border country, so there is more control, more responsibility, and of all things, and I think the guy is really more socialist than anything, but he came out and said, I'm totally against the New World Order kind of thing. I don't know if you guys saw that, but came out and really spoke against it. I mean, he would, you know, with scar in his mouth. I mean, kind of was kind of a cute situation the way he was doing it, but looked a little odd. But he was, you know, I'm not going to be part of this New World Order. And I was surprised he said that, but you know what? It may have gotten him to cash he need to defend his country. So,
you know, I think Q might have made a typo on one of his posts then.
Right? Why is that?
Because it's not the what was it he said, the boomerang, what was it? Boomerang death? Maybe he meant boomerang wall.
Yeah.
That's a joke.
Okay, so we've got everybody.
Well, that went over like a lead balloon.
Anyway. Oh, sorry. I fell asleep.
Okay, let me put on my Jeb hat. Somebody, please clap.
give him a raincoat, quick, okay? Anyway, so the story goes. Let me throw this one out. She's speaking of raincoats. Planned Parenthood's losing their funding. $50-60 million. I saw today.
You're kidding.
What do y'all have to say about that? And it's going
I saw that and I was thrilled.
Tell them who it's going towards. Tell them where the money's going.
I don't know where the money's going.
For pregnancy something or other.
The pregnancy
centers. Yep.
To
support people who are pregnant.
The actual women's health centers.
So now they're actually losing their funding for real?
Yeah.
That is awesome.
For abortion.
On the news today.
They're starting to.
Awesome.
You know, I was young when I got pregnant and I was married and I was 20 and I went to the Planned Parenthood office in our local area. And because I thought they would help me understand being a parent better than my parents did, you know. And the only thing I was offered was an abortion.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea when I walked in there. I mean, I've been that naive most of my life, but I had no idea that's what they were about. I was absolutely appalled.
Have you, on that note, sorry, not on your note, Milkmaid, but what you said reminded me of something I saw this morning. Do you guys know who Abby Johnson is?
No, I don't know the name.
She was a Planned Parenthood director, and she totally went in the opposite direction after she was asked to participate in an abortion because they were short, and she actually got to see one and actually saw the video and the screen that the doctor can see that the woman can't. And I had the pleasure of meeting her and displeasure of listening to her speech. Displeasure in the sense of how graphic she told us what went on. Anyways, the long story is that they're actually making a movie of her life. And it was done almost covertly outside of Hollywood. And the actress, I saw the interview of the actress today, that the actress got a 7-hour notice to fly out somewhere where they did they pitched the movie to her, and they actually warned her that it would probably end her career. And she said she didn't care, that she felt so strongly about being pro-life that she did it. When she got home, she found out that her parents had contemplated aborting her.
Wow.
Yeah, talk about
And
interesting, right?
Irony there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and once you explained it, I do remember the story of that woman, but I didn't place her name. I didn't remember it over the years.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it's she's a very interesting young woman. She's not she's not old at all. And yeah, it was in California. There was it was one of the groups that I funded or donated to and so forth. Alpha Pregnancy, it was called. They were one of the first ones in the Bay Area to actually have the MRI buses, the motorhomes with the MRI machines and everything else inside, where they actually did the ultrasounds, and well, I shouldn't have said MRI, but the ultrasound machines, where they actually parked in front of abortion clinics, and actually had women go in and do the ultrasound, and then they would hand them the pictures of the ultrasound.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a tremendous success rate of preventing abortions.
That's an awesome job.
It's interesting. Go ahead.
It's called safe sex or close your legs.
Exactly.
Abstinence.
Well, you know what? You hit something. Go ahead. I'm sorry,
but there's so many different ways of birth control out there now that they didn't have in the 50s, the 40s, the 30s, when they had to use coat hangers and people were in alleyways dying. There's no excuse for an unwanted pregnancy anymore. None, except for rape. And I'm sorry. It's obsolete.
Yeah, it's interesting. My favorite brain guy, Jordan Peterson, he was doing a seminar, one of his lectures, and a woman came up and said, I need to ask you a question about abortion and your thoughts on it, and how you stand on it, and do you think abortion's right? And he says, wow. He goes, why do you guys give me these questions when I'm up here? And he says, here's what I think. He says, if you're asking me, is abortion immoral? Yes, I do. He said, but you're asking the wrong question, because by the time you get to the point where you're pregnant, you've already missed all the points that went before it. And that it starts with the communication and the decisions you make when you're with another person, and how you behave and how you judge yourself or decide to act when you're deciding to have a sexual relationship with a person. Are you talking about how it's going to be safe if you do this? Are you talking about how we're going to use protection? And he really laid it out, is that by the time you get to the point where you're pregnant, you've already missed all the conversation you should have had with your partner.
Right.
Because the truth is that you should have, it begins right at the beginning. When you get that serious with a person, then, that's where the morality starts. Is this person the right person for me to have that with? And it was really valid. I thought it was just, intelligent thinking, is that everybody wants to throw it down to the end decision. It's a woman's right. But he was saying it's still a woman's right, but you've got to go back and say, you know what, how did I do the work beforehand? Did I do all the thinking when I should have been thinking? And did the man do the thinking? And, what happens, if I'm going to have spontaneous sex, how prepared am I? He says that people need to take risks, but that's not the risk you take. The risk you take is to find a partner, but how you handle that is very important at the beginning, and how you decide how you're going to handle it. And I thought, that really puts a good kind of wrapper around it, is that, and someone was asking me, I think Milkmaid, you asked me about critical thinking. That's the epitome of critical thinking, is that don't get to the end result and say it's a woman's right. What the decision was is it occurred 9 months prior with your decision, or a year prior with a couple's decision to have an intimate relationship. And that's where the conversation has to begin, not after you've had sex something didn't work and now you're pregnant. It has to be at the beginning, is that if this happens, where are we going to stand on this? Not that you shouldn't have sex, but are you talking about all the responsibilities you're going to take with it? And if you do that, then you become a much more truthful and focused person about how you're controlling your life. Because if you don't do that, then you're really just, playing Russian roulette with your whole future. Anyway, I'm sorry to get on a soapbox.
But I think that still goes right back where we were Sunday to the family, because dad isn't in the picture anymore to have the talk with the son, and mom doesn't have the talk with the daughter anymore. And the kids are just left to go out and do on their own. And while a young lady may not exactly want to, boys push, and then it happens. So if the boys have a lack of respect for the girls, and they aren't taught that when they get the girls pregnant, they're going to be a father, okay, with all the responsibilities that should be shouldered, it's a breakdown in the family that I think created it.
I think that's part of it.
Part of the problem.
I think that's part of it. Yeah, is that, but it's not every family, and for every person that has sex, that's where you got to start. And if you start at the beginning in your life, whether you have a mother or father, or they're both out of the picture, are you finding someone to talk to anyway? I mean, there's a certain need for all that, but more important, the question begins not, do I need an abortion? But the question is, what are we going to do if we have sex and this happens? And I think that's critical. I mean, I think it's really something everybody should look at. But anyway,
I think you're completely right. I just think that so many people now, younger than we are, sorry, but we're all relatively within a similar age. I think that the breakdown started with the breakdown of the family, but that was intentional on the cabal's part.
Yeah,
when they started breaking down the nuclear family, originally it was to help push the welfare rolls and our dependence on the government, taking that father out of the role.
Yeah.
That too, and they're teaching kids in school how to have sex, and they are giving them birth control in school without parental consent.
Yep.
So there's a lot of things going on that shouldn't be happening.
And that crap really needs to stop.
Oh, yeah.
But again, it's how people get taught, is how truthful are you being when you're doing something, is that how your words matter and how your actions matter, and taking self-responsibility. We need to reteach everybody that, and it's the parents, but it's how it gets communicated to the children, and not how it gets communicated from some authority figure at a school who comes in and says, well, this is this body part and that's that body part, it belongs there. And that's not, we've got to stop turning to other people to be authority figures for our children. I mean, is that we have to do it. And if they don't have it, it can't be the government doing it. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And here, the other side is, you talk about population control. I mean, if this isn't a perfect example of it, is that, Planned Parenthood has their own agenda, I believe. And, it's not necessarily just about abortions. So, and protecting people's rights or a woman's rights. Let's put it that way.
That's a total euphemism.
But, our country has changed and people have changed with birth control. It changed the entire culture. Is that once birth control came along, for the first time, women had control of their body in their own personal way. They were able to control it. And the birth control pill really was a big game changer. It allowed women to move into the workplace, which had never happened before. And all these different things occurred that maybe, and it's kind of like technology, we talked about it the other day, is that we all got hyped up about technology and how great it is until one day we woke up and we go, wait a minute, they're watching me? I'm putting a Band-Aid over my cell phone camera, because I don't want anybody looking into my house. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of the same thing with authority figures outside the family home. Is that, do we really want those people teaching that in our schools? Do we really want to turn that over to someone else? Or does it need to come from us? You know what I'm saying? And is it one-sided? as a social justice issue, or is it a choice that, it's not a dichotomy, but it's a sliding scale across what we got to look at as a person. And are they being taught that, or are they just being taught one answer, which is, we'll give you birth control, go, be yourself. And if you're pregnant, don't worry about your parents. We'll take care of you. Those are
That's
issues.
What they're doing in school, especially here in California.
Yeah. And it's issues. I mean, it's something that really needs to be relooked at by everybody, and it needs to be taken care of on a local level. And I have to tell you, if you can't, I say this to people all the time, if the local level can't be changed because it's just one kind of locked in group, if it's one group think and you can't get out of it, then you need to move to the next area. And not everybody can do that, but that needs to be considered, is that you need to be in an area that matches up with your belief system. And I'm saying it probably for maybe the extremely leftist areas, is that it's a bit scary. And you need to protect your family and yourself, or your ideals, your morals, your mores, to match up with the community you live in. Anyway, Let me stop there.
I got to bring some levity. I saw a tweet yesterday. It said, if you're in California, you need to get out. Go to Nevada, go to Arizona, go to Oregon, but don't come to Texas.
Yeah.
That is the joke here. In fact, Texans.
There is a new push. I mean, there's T-shirts out that say, "Don't California my Texas," and even the governor of Texas put a tweet out recently saying that he's noticed a lot of Californians moving into the state, and just to let you know ahead of time, we are Texas. We will stay Texas, and you will not come here and ruin our state.
Yeah, it's a funny
tell
thing.
That to Austin.
Yeah. Austin, you know what? I got to tell you though, and I was born in Austin, and Austin was always a hippie town, and so that culture changed with this kind of neo-Marxist kind of attitude that was taught in schools, but it was always a hippie town. I mean, we had a place called Hippie Hollow for skinny dipping, and back in Texas in the 60s, that was unheard of. Okay. I mean, there was no other place in Texas you could find a place like that. And that was what Austin was about. It was, we have a bumper sticker if you go into Austin, is that it says, keep Austin weird. And there's a certain value to that in supporting small business, but now it's shifting, is that now all of a sudden it's becoming politicized, and instead of being freedom and kind of a throwback to the 60s, not that the 60s had all the answers, I'm not saying that, but is that now it's changed over to a political party attitude, and it's gotten into our politics in those cities. And Austin's a difficult city compared to the rest of Texas. And we have our parts, that are different, but Austin's the if you talk to other people around the state, Austin's not appreciated by a lot of people, even though it's a great city. I have to tell you, one of the most beautiful to live in. And if you go there, you won't want to leave. In fact, when I came back there for college, it would be typical to find someone with a PhD waiting tables because they just don't want to move out of Austin. And, they went to college there, got their PhD, and no, I don't want to leave Austin. The rent was cheap and it was an easy place to live. It's not that way anymore. Now the rent's getting very expensive. Homes are much more expensive, and it's being all built up. All the hill country that Austin had is now being, large homes. Big homes have come in.
I was going to say, Tex, don't dox yourself from the 60s, because that skinny dipping place was called your hot tub.
Yeah, let me tell you, I was born in the place. If anyone's curious, I was born in the Pleistocene era, and now let me tell you, Eisenhower was president when I was born. So put it that way. But
well, I'm a fellow Texan. I'm from North Texas. I'm from Fort Worth, and North Texas and South Texas, they are two completely different states, two completely different worlds, two completely different cultures. Especially between Fort Worth and Dallas and Houston. Houston is its own little entity, and it's not very good.
We joke we grow dirt and oil here, and if you go on a drive in Texas, we have very high speed limits because there's nothing in between places. You just literally got just land, and that's it. Just nothing's happening in between cities, and So the story goes is that if you go into certain parts of Texas, it is so different from the rest. I mean, Texas is, you can get whatever you want in Texas.
Yep.
You want the beach, you can go to the Gulf of Mexico. If you want cold weather, go to Amarillo and the Panhandle. If you want big city life, you've got Dallas and Houston. If you want hippie life or social justice, you can go to Austin. And anywhere else, you can be a good old Republican. And
you can go out west and get the mountains.
Yep, and that's right. I forgot about that.
In Amarillo, when is it cold? Because the 2 or 3 times I've been there, it's like I dehydrated from the hotel restaurant.
Let me put it this way: they actually get snow accumulation. Okay,
Yeah.
It does get cold in the winter. So
Amarillo gets colder than a well digger's butt.
It really does. It really does.
Yeah,
but I'll get you down here sometime, and we'll do a drive of the state. But and we'll go to Area 51 while we're at it.
Yeah.
Good luck. Good luck
I've been,
between San Antonio and El Paso, because I don't even think God knows if there's land out there. Last time I got out, there was an exit, and off the exit there was one McDonald's, and when I tell you that was it, rest was desert. We had tumbleweeds and we had a train to watch between El Paso and
San Antonio.
In El Paso. My God, that is the longest freaking trip.
You're going to find 3 things. You're going to find limestone, you're going to find dirt, and you're going to find oily water. And that's about it. And not much else. So
mesquite.
And mesquite. Yes, you will. And cedar.
Oh, yeah.
Darn thorns. Oh.
Sounds very interesting.
Okay, let's see. What else do we need to cover here? Anybody got something they want to bring up? I've been kind of going through my list of things I had. Would anybody like to start a conversation here?
I just want to add that there was President Trump signed into an order that the federal government will be shut down on Tuesday night.
Yay!
It won't be the shutdown, but Tuesday night is Christmas Eve.
You know the trick of the shutdown.
It is such high. Sorry.
Yeah, it is. And we've talked about this. Yeah. Is that what's actually getting shut down? Probably the most important thing is immigration. Okay, that's well, not it's only portions, because most will have to stay if there are important things, but the immigration departments can shut down. So not only are we not letting people cross anymore at their own leisure, but the immigration services won't be working. So, well, I mean that's why the other party is the Democrats are up in arms about a shutdown. Is that and no one wants a shutdown, but you know what? Sometimes they're good.
Would not hurt us to shut down that government.
No,
for a month. It wouldn't hurt us at all.
And come on, all the overtime Border Patrol's been using, and they get to go home now and be with their families.
Oh,
no, they don't.
I know.
Oh,
sorry.
Military doesn't get to go anywhere.
Well,
no.
Well, no. Maybe Border Patrol can take the vacation holiday time with their families, and we'll just leave the military down there. Thank you, boys, for staying down on the border. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I was going to say it's really the military and the National Guard that are out of pocket, because the ICE agents live along the border. I mean, that's their daily job.
Right.
So most of those people live in El Paso, Laredo, Brownsville. That's their homes anyway. And
right,
that's
but
where they are.
I believe we pulled a lot of customs agents from the northern border and the other places as well to get down there.
I think there should be a great big hiring of customs agents and get them up to the northern border, because we're going to need them if the UN's going in.
Yeah, but the trick is, again, we're shutting down the customs. Is that we're shutting down customs so no one can get through. I mean, it's actually it's a double bind for the Democrats. Is if they want to make Trump look, if they want to make Trump look bad, they're actually going to not let people in the country at all. I mean, it's actually going to slow everything to a crawl.
They can't. They can't.
What you wish for?
They can't let Trump. They can't make Trump look bad on this shutdown, because you think of the last time that they wanted to shut it down. They were demanding when they were all hippy skippy on the DACA. Trump actually gave them twice the number that they were asking for. They still refused it and wanted to shut the government down. So,
and they still have never mentioned the word DACA again.
Yeah, and they fail, and they failed that, and they failed at the shutdown, and this time they're going to fail again because nobody's going to notice.
And not only that, but Trump brought Chucky Boy and Nancy worldwide stage on the news and brought them right out there, and when he talked about that shutdown. So,
right,
the ball in their court. So they just don't understand. They're just in this losing pattern, and they just
they're operating. Well, I mean, Q said it. Time for a new playbook. They're playing the game that they played with previous presidents. Right, and Trump is not like that.
No, he's 12 chess.
Well, those presidents were in the bag with them.
Even if he putting that the 4D chest aside aspect of things, it's more or less they just don't know how to read him. That's why they're stupid. They just he's not that unpredictable in the sense that you can predict what he's going to do. You can predict he's going to be unpredictable, and from that perspective, you don't think he's going to be doing the same playbook that W did or that Obama did or that the Clinton did or whatever.
Oh yeah, he's on a brand new playbook. He's writing his playbook as he goes along.
Right, and these people
just leaving them kerfuffled.
And these people exactly, and they're kind of, the other quote from Q is that these people are stupid. But it just cracks me up because right now, the shutdown, nobody's going to notice it. The only way anybody's going to even hear about it is if the media makes a big deal out of it, like they have been, trotting out every senator and every Democrat saying, on both sides saying, well, we really don't need a shutdown. It's really not good that we have a shutdown. We shouldn't have a shutdown. 80% of the government will be funded, but we shouldn't really have a shutdown. And then when they do, nobody's going to notice.
That's what's it's going to be the most transparent shutdown you've ever seen.
Exactly.
It will not exist to the American people.
Exactly.
And no matter how much they scream and try, is that the American people will not feel it. It won't happen. Checks will still come for the people who need them, the retirees. It's all going to be there. And it's going to be the most silly thing when it goes around is that, he's going to be complaining to them. That I shut down the government because you guys can't give me the money that I need. And they'll just look silly. I mean, they really will look silly on this. So, but that's good. I love them looking silly.
And to back up on an earlier topic, I was informed that you were correct, Tennessee. Penny Marshall was indeed married to Meathead.
Was he?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Aha! My brain is not feeling that bad. Hey, I still have a couple of neurons working.
No, you got a few neurons going. No, I did not know that. And I lived through the era. It's weird.
Poor Penny.
I know. I feel so
sorry
for her.
They were married in 71 to 81.
Rob and Carl Reiner. Rob, husband. Carl is Rob, husband, and Carl, father-in-law. Oh,
yeah. Wouldn't that be sick?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Imagine the most important thing you did in your life was you were called Meathead.
Yeah.
Every chance he got.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and he still is.
I know it. He proves how dumb he is every day. Wow, that is something strange. Does anybody know what she died of?
Diabetes, complications of diabetes.
Oh, that's sad. She shouldn't have been drinking that Pepsi and milk.
You
got a good memory.
She should have stuck to Schlotz beer.
Yeah. That was the grossest thing I ever saw in my whole entire life. It just made me gag every time she did that. I was like, oh.
Yeah, I was just looking up information on her. I had no idea her daughter actually played in the movie. Everybody's what was it? With the girl baseball players.
A League of Their Own.
A League of Their Own. I had no idea her daughter was actually in it. She was a character. She was the mother of the. She was a real pretty brunette.
Oh, you
Tracy Rainier. Yeah.
really? Penny
Yeah.
Marshall's daughter, was that her?
Yeah, that was her.
Wow.
The one, if you remember the movie, the one that received the letter in the locker room saying her husband had been killed overseas.
Right.
Yeah, that was her.
Wow. You know, she looked a lot like Mary Steenburgen more than she did
Yes,
Penny
she
Marshall.
did. Yes, she did. I mean, you think of Penny Marshall and Rob Reiner, you would think that kid would come out looking, you know.
Well, that's a low end of the gene pool there.
Yeah. Penny Marshall was funny, but she sure as hell wasn't pretty.
No, did I say that out loud? Was I on speaker?
Yeah, you were.
No, not only that, you're live on YouTube.
Yeah.
Shame. Milkmaid, were you going to say something? I'm sorry.
Oh, you were talking about Pepsi and milk, and I was looking at my icon. That's all.
Oh, how funny.
Oh my God, that is funny.
That is hilarious. Oh my gosh.
Not a premonition.
Well, you know, that's what float is, ice cream. So it's frozen milk, but
Well, that's root beer. It's different. It's not Pepsi.
no, they do it with Coke too. The root beer float is that. Yeah, they do it with Coke as well.
Ooh.
You know, one of these days I got to talk to Kaz. When I was young, my favorite beers were out of Ireland and out of Australia. And used to drink Foster's that came in those big old cans.
Yep.
And I thought that was just, it wasn't a great beer, but it was great to drink out of an oil can. I mean, it was like, this is a man's beer, you know. I mean, you really felt good about it. I'm a man now, you know. And, you know, you could sit there and, boy, you know, in the state, in fact, actually, you know, for years you could drive in Texas. Oh, is that her?
That's her. You would not think that came out of Penny Marshall and Rob Reiner.
Wait, you're sharing. Hold on. I'm not seeing. Hold on.
It's not on
Oh,
YouTube.
yeah.
Wow. Pretty lady.
Yep.
Well, anyway, I'm sorry about saying anything bad about your parents there. And, but no, going back is that and Guinness, which are opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of beers. But once I went to Europe and started drinking bitters and warm beer, I fell in love with it once you get the taste for it. But after a while, I realized that, you know, I think God gives you a quota of beer for your lifetime. And about by 29, I had drank my quota. And so I stopped drinking. But anyway.
Well, you can tell you're from Texas.
Well, I'll tell you, when I went to college, the beer that I liked was the one I could afford.
Yeah.
Which was the one I could afford.
we're really on topic here, but I have to say, we used to buy, when I was at the University of Michigan, we used to buy Old Milwaukee, which is a headache in every bottle, is the way it's advertised. And we would buy a case of it and stick it outside on our windowsill. We had like a ledge, and we would put it out there so it gets so cold you couldn't taste it because it was so bad. It was so cheap, but it was so bad, and that was our way of getting through it. So anyway, anybody want to talk about any more beers, or
yes.
Do we want to put up?
When I went to school, there used to be a place, a bar that catered to the school, of course, and it was an engineering school, so you can imagine that, and it was called the Fast Break, and they would serve you all at one time 13 glasses of beer for $1.
Oh my God.
My gosh.
So needless to say, $5 went a long way to not getting home.
I had a few of those nights, but college was a challenge in many ways, and that was one of them.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But those were the good old days. I barely remember them. I knew they existed. I just barely remember them.
Is that why you went to so many colleges?
Well, that's it. That's why I was thrown out of so many fine colleges.
I told you shouldn't have thrown out those stone tablets that were your records.
I know it, you know, and that guy was so nice to me, the old guy with the white hair. He gave me those things and said, pay attention. And I just, you know, back then I just didn't listen, you know, that damn calf.
Well, you know,
anyway,
Fred and Barney Rubble were kind of busy after that.
Okay. Let me get my walker and strike at you guys. You know. Oh, so we're coming to the end. Anybody have any topics they want to bring up to put a bow on this thing?
Either. We haven't had any more cues tonight. We're just waiting for him to drop because if President Trump is tweeting this late, I have a feeling.
Yeah,
you got cues coming behind him.
I got the same thing. I was thinking, we might get one of those midnight Q runs. Is that at least if not tonight, maybe tomorrow and the next day, because so much is happening, or there'll be at least a recap towards the end of the week to kind of point us in directions.
I sure would like to have him drop something on Loretta. That'd be nice.
I would like to see something dropped on the cemetery.
Yeah, some type of confirmation.
I have a question. Hillary Clinton canceled her speaking engagements and her tour, and I saw headlines that said she was leaving the country in order to run for president again. Well, that doesn't make any sense. But I never clicked on any of those because I had other things to look at or listen to.
Oh, she probably canceled her tour in Canada because it wasn't making any money. They were
I get that, but I'm wondering, has anybody heard from her since she canceled her tour? Because that would be a really good way to guise the fact that she was getting picked up.
Wasn't she supposedly seeing Bill in India the other day? Somebody said those two were in India and they had a real sparse extradition treaty over there.
Interesting. I don't know about that.
The last time of anything with Hillary was on the funeral that I know.
Yeah, I know that she canceled her speaking engagements because they, lack of seating and stuff like that. But well, not lack of seating, lack of butts in the seats. Sorry,
like a full seat.
It was a great excuse for her to disappear.
Yeah, true.
To say I'm leaving the country to go do whatever, and then have her just fall off the face of the map and be in Gitmo. I was just bringing it up, wondering if anybody.
Yeah. I was just reading again. She and Bill and Uma were actually in India. There was a billionaire.
Didn't they go to his
daughter got married?
The wedding, right?
Yeah, they went and attended the wedding.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering if anybody'd seen her.
Might have been on one of those planes going to Gitmo. That would be nice.
1-800 SEAL team.
I don't think them being in India is going to stop our SEALs from picking her up.
Nope.
Oh, no. You said that they can't hide and they can't run.
Right. I think we should have a lottery. 1 through 6. Which team?
Yeah, really. That's right. Oh,
I think we should wrap it up.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good.
I got classified material that I need to go and do.
Okay.
Oh.
And we won't even ask because it's classified.
I already know what it is.
And
leaker.
For those who joined us on YouTube chat, if you'd click like and subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. And we appreciate you being here with us. And everybody, you want to say good night? Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Dick. Say good night, Gracie. Good night, Gracie.
Good night, Mary Ellen. Night, John Boy.
John Boy, yeah.